it's probably time to give the surface a bit of a rake. And when we're talking about raking, we're just dragging a tool that has some tooth to it across the surface gently, following some of the major lines, but also going across some of the lines. And we're just looking for the major any irregularities in the surface, any big lumps or any pits that need to be filled. And it also just blends the forms. So we've got a few handmade rakes. Obviously I wouldn't use something this large. This is made from a bandsaw. It's for life-size sculpture, just bent into shape and duct tape on the handle. Another, just a slightly different version of that. It's probably hard to see, but just file down the teeth as well, just so they're not really sharp, so they're not as grabby. Again, those are pretty big. This is a clay tool that I've just wrapped some wire around. Some other smaller saw blade versions. And again, got 500 rakes, and I probably use the same 2 or 3 over and over. This is a simple one, a little more aggressive for larger pieces, just some braided wire. And then really quite popular is making rakes from guitar strings. Anyway, that can focus. And then just epoxying the ends. So the right size. So if I start with this, kind of the largest one possible, and I'm just not being really aggressive. I'm not trying to carve away. I'm just trying to even out some of those forms. Something that's a little bit flatter might work. I'm gonna support this so it's not bouncing. So I think you can see I'm not removing a lot of material, but what it's doing is it is showing me if there's any trouble spots. So I do have this one that's a little more aggressive. Might be a bit much for Sculpey. It's different than raking like monster clay or like earthen clay or wed clay, because Sculpey's so squishy. Yeah, this is maybe carving up the surface a little bit. I probably use this on the cranium here, and then go back to the guitar strings for the rest. So I am going to give this thing a quick rake from top to bottom. Not entirely sure how that's reading on camera, but I have raked most of the surface. I didn't get too fussy around the facial features, but it's identified a few spots. I can hear where there's some actual divots, so I can just fill with tiny little blocks of clay. The overall shape, I think, is okay. Again, I've got that little bit of a turn, but I did stand it up a bit more. So I think what I'll do next is obviously blend this kind of secondary brow form. Also notice that I pulled this lid out to merge as it comes under the brow, and we'll put some wrinkles and lines in it later. I need to do the same on this side. Pull that top lip out, blend the brow. So we'll keep going on that. Well, I'll keep going on that. I have no idea what you're doing. Send me a picture, show me what you're doing. slowly but surely moving along. Added that top lip. Pretty happy with the profile in terms of the mouth. Also taken the opportunity with the lip to push the expression a little bit further. So rather than having kind of tightly closed lips in the frown, just give it a little bit of a curl. So push that top lid up, move that bottom one down a little bit, but kept the overall opening of the mouth in this kind of frown or downward movement. I did sculpt in some more of the lid on this side. Again, this is going to be a fantastic region where these meet, and once we get a little more of the bottom lid on, where they meet in the corner here, we'll put lots of lines and wrinkles in. So really use that spot for adding lots of detail. So I did incorporate that brow, and I decided to actually use it as a design element. Again, extending from the realistic anatomy, the way our brow sometimes wrinkles up, more so when we open our eyes wide. So it's it would be a little bit odd because these eyes are frowning a little bit, which can actually smooth out our brow. However, adding a little bit of weight and age and gravity, I think is just helping the character. So I will probably continue like I've been doing. I haven't blended any of these yet. It feels just a little bit heavy still. Especially on the edges, I haven't blended anything. Again, it'll be a really nice opportunity to put in lots of wrinkles down into the cheeks. Sometimes it's okay to just put some blocks on, put some rough forms on, and live with it a little bit before you blend them in and commit. If you decide you don't like it, it's easy to remove. And speaking of wanting to remove it, that last one just seemed to be unnecessary. So and maybe even the first one that I put on. I'm going to leave that. I'll just leave the ends hanging out like this. So if I need to grab it and tear it off in a fit of rage, it's easy to do that. So where do we go next? I'll leave that as is. Decide what I want to do. Obviously, blending the edges, incorporating them into the cranium and brow a little bit more. A little bit of work on the lower lids. Kind of recommitting to these folds that come down. I'm not sure if you can see just in the top of the screen the reference, right? Those nasolabial folds that come down kind of from just above the nostril and down beside the mouth. I've got some blending to do in here. So I want to recommit to those, and then it's time to deal with the nose a little bit. It's still this really generic generic shape. I'll probably use this as a little bit of a model. Maybe give me a chance after, or a reason to clean out those nostril plugs from the casting. It's only been probably 8 years that I've had it like that, so that might be a good excuse to finally clean that up. The other thing I was thinking as I was sculpting this kind of open lip was on this particular design, we're not going to get, I'm not going to have an opportunity to demonstrate how we might approach an open mouth where you would have teeth and maybe some of the interior of the mouth. So maybe I'll do a short video, not on this, but just as a quick demonstration on how I would approach an open mouth. Obviously, you need to go back to the armature and make sure your armature is designed that you can sculpt the mouth open. But similar to the eyeballs, it's kind of easier if some of the elements are cured and at least firm to start. So I might do just a short video on open mouth before we go too much further. I know there's been lots of videos on in this already. I hope you're sticking with it if you are following along. The finishing, so tiny little wrinkles, little folds, skin pores, and then a little bit of paint, a little bit of staining before we cure it. So you know, a few options. So we're getting closer. Again, be patient. It does take a long time, and if you don't like what you see, remove it. I'm just not sure I can stomach that anymore. I think I like this. Again, even though it's not it's unnatural in terms of human anatomy, I do like just the design elements of these going really small, you're slowly getting larger, then stopping here, and this shelf of this brow I think is kind of interesting. So I think I'll probably leave it there. Okay, thanks for carrying on, and I am serious. Please send me a picture. I will post my my Ridger College email address at the end of this video. Send me an email if you're working along. Show me where you're at. Show me what you're doing. Do not hesitate to connect and ask any questions. Until next time, thanks. Be safe.